How's it going, everyone? I am Jinsula, and welcome to another Pokemon Go raid guide video. Today we are going to be covering the electric and fairy type legendary Pokemon TAPU KOKO. The shiny form of this Pokemon is set to debut really soon, so this video is going to explain how you can get it. Right, so with that said, let's roll the intro and get right into it. Okay, let's talk about TAPU KOKO. So this legendary Pokemon from the Alola region is once again returning to raids, and this time, its shiny form will be available. While this Pokemon is hardly considered relevant in any way, the uniqueness and rarity of its shiny is something you should think about when raiding this Pokemon. I'll go over the shiny rates later in this video, but first let's go over the details of this raid boss. TAPU KOKO is an electric and fairy type legendary Pokemon. This type combination is quite unique, as not a lot of Pokemon will have it. These types give it only two weaknesses, ground and poison. It has a ton of resistances, including a double resistance to dragon, and regular resistances to bug, dark, electric, fighting, and flying. TAPU KOKO is going to be weather boosted by cloudy and rainy weather. The perfect IV CP for this Pokemon will be 1810 and 2263 if it is weather boosted. Catching a perfect IV is not necessarily going to be a top priority, as this Pokemon is not relevant in any way. But if you are someone who loves collecting hundos and shundos regardless if the Pokemon is good or not, then these are the numbers you will want to target. TAPU KOKO is easy enough as a raid boss where you can defeat it with just one other trainer, assuming both of you are at least trainer level 40 and bring the best counters. If you bring decent counters and are not yet level 40, I will go with about 5 other trainers of equal level. Since this Pokemon doesn't have a double weakness, it is going to be a little bit tougher to take down if you don't bring the absolute best counters. Speaking of which, let's talk about what those counters are. The absolute best Pokemon you will want to bring to this raid battle is going to be Mega Gengar with poison type attacks, Mega Swampert with ground type attacks, Nihilego with poison type attacks, Shadow Mamoswine with ground type attacks, Excadrill with ground type attacks, and Terrian form Landorus with ground type attacks. In general, you will want to bring your best poison types or ground types. However, avoid bringing any Garchomp because it is weak to TAPU KOKO's fairy type move Dazzling Gleam. Bringing Pokemon like Excadrill and Mega Swampert will be safe, as they resist pretty much most of TAPU KOKO's hardest hitting attacks. If you want this raid battle to be easier, look for weather boosts that would increase the damage of poison types and ground types. These are, of course, cloudy weather and clear weather. Depending on what the weather conditions are around you, set up your team based around that. You should also coordinate Mega Evolutions with your fellow raiders as well. If they are bringing a poison type Mega Evolution, like Mega Gengar or Mega Beedrill, then set up your team with a bunch of poison types like Nihilego. If they are bringing a ground type Mega Evolution like Mega Swampert or Mega Steelix, then bring your best ground types. I would suggest always defaulting to ground types, however, because there are plenty more ground types that are viable for raid battles compared to poison types. That's something you should communicate with other raiders as well. Now, if you're a newer player without a large number of legendaries, you can use Mega Gengar with poison type attacks, Mega Swampert with ground type attacks, Shadow Mamoswine or regular Mamoswine with ground type attacks, Excadrill with ground type attacks, Rhyperior with ground type attacks, and Roserade with poison type attacks. So yeah, these are the counters you should bring to this raid boss. It is pretty straightforward, as TAPU KOKO doesn't have a type combination that covers each other. This isn't a difficult raid boss by any means. It's not like the counters are hard to get, and it doesn't have a bloated defense stat that requires a lot of heavy hitters. Even though this Pokemon isn't gameplay relevant, you could probably take advantage of how easy it is for farming up rare candies and rare candy XL from in-person raids. Okay, now that I covered how you can defeat this boss, let's now talk about how you can get its shiny form. I totally recognize that what I'm about to say is going to draw some comments of people saying, "Well, duh." But basically, you just need to complete as many raids as possible. TAPU KOKO is presumably going to have the base shiny rate for legendary raids at around 1 in 20. This means every TAPU KOKO encounter you come across from raids will have a 5% chance that it will be shiny. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you are guaranteed a shiny TAPU KOKO if you complete 20 raids, but you will increase your chances at getting one the more you do. I mean, it's completely RNG based. In the past, I've had to do upwards of 100 raids of a particular legendary Pokemon before getting its shiny form, Yet, I've also had some shiny legendaries after just a handful of raids. So, if you want a shiny Tapu Koko, it's all going to depend on luck. Something to keep in mind is that you don't necessarily have to do just raids in order to get this shiny. You can also pick it up through PvP rewards as long as you are rank 20 or above. However, the chances of you getting a legendary through the Go Battle League is pretty slim, so don't expect this to be a reliable way to get a shiny Tapu Koko. I can't say that this shiny Pokemon is worth spending a ton of raid passes for. As of right now, this Pokemon doesn't have any kind of relevance in either raids or PvP. Thus, it's not certain just how desirable this particular shiny will be with lucky trades. If anything, you should just raid Tapu Koko minimally until you pick up the shiny, and then move on. It's not something I would prioritize over other legendary shiny Pokemon that are way more deserving of your raid passes. Legendary Pokemon like Registeel, Groudon, Kyogre, Rayquaza, Mewtwo, Yveltal, Zekrom, and Reshiram, all of which have their shinies in the game, are likely going to be asked for with lucky trades over Tapu Koko. Thus, you really don't have any incentive to stock up on this shiny. Of course, things could certainly change in the future if Niantic were to improve Tapu Koko in some way, notably with an added fast or charge attack. However, because it has fairly low stats for both raids and PvP, it is highly unlikely. In other words, you don't necessarily need to stock up on this shiny, hoping that it will improve later on. But like I said earlier, the one thing shiny Tapu Koko has going for it is how unique and cool its shiny form actually looks. Maybe that is something players will actually care about, thus elevating this shiny Pokemon's value. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know down below if you got yourself a shiny of this Pokemon. Feel free to brag about how good the IVs are, and if there was a tip that I completely missed, definitely share that down below as well. Also, let me know if you disagree that this Pokemon is irrelevant, and let's have a great discussion. And if you ended up enjoying this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here. And don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support my channel in any way, big or small, then be sure to check out the links in the description below. For all my patrons, they get a permanent spot on my in-game friends list. So if you want to interact with me in some way, like with remote raids, then do consider becoming a patron on my Patreon. But yeah, that's going to be it. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.